how do we start this? Okay. So, welcome to the video, I guess. For record sakes, we're both using a fake name. My name is Barry, or that's what the name I go by in this channel. And I'm joined by my wonderful, beautiful friend who we'll call by Goldie.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. We're here to discuss Fruits Basket. We watched the entire series before doing this discussion, but we are talking about it season by season. Just we have some discussion topics already picked out, but one of the first things I want to talk about is how we even encountered this series. I want to ask you, Goldie, how did you encounter Fruits Basket? Because from what I know, you're not usually a anime fan.
Yeah, it's not the most exciting story, honestly. I had a Hulu account and I was looking at different recommendations because I do like anime that's along the lines of like Miyazaki movies.
Mm-hmm.
And Fruits Basket came up as an option, and I actually had it saved in my to watch list for a while. Like, this could be interesting. But then I started seeing reviews online about how it was a lot more interesting than it seemed, and I clicked on it thinking, "Okay, this looks like a light show, I'll get to enjoy it, it'll be a non-stressful watch," and, well, I was wrong about that, but but I sure enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I encountered Fruits Basket all the way back in like the early 2000s. I watched the original series, the older version back when I was still living in the Philippines, and I watched it with
Mhm.
my cousin. I It was translated to Tagalog. That's what I watched when I first encountered, and like it ended around the same place the first season ended, so I was like always confused. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And
Uh-huh.
when I started living in the US, I heard like, oh yeah, it's been cut off, there is more to the story, you should read the manga. But like at the time I was poor, so I don't buy mangas. And you could borrow the mangas in the library, but somebody always has the next version that you have. So at that point, I'm just like, okay, I'll probably get to watch the new series eventually. But then you told me you were watching it, and now I'm just like, shoot, now I have to watch it now so I could talk to her about it.
Yeah, it turned into a nice little connection.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where we encountered it. Okay. We could start talking about the characters we meet in the first season. um,
Yeah, it's quite a few.
there is quite a few, like vast majority of the characters are introduced in the first season, and I think you texted me a bunch of your first impressions of some of the characters. Okay, okay, let's
Oh.
start with Tohru Honda, our main protagonist. What's your opinion of her?
I remember when I first encountered her, she was not what I expected from an anime protagonist.
Okay,
She
tell me
seemed
more about what your expectations were.
I don't know that I had expectations per se, but it was more that I was not expecting what first seemed to be a level of ditziness from her.
Mm,
As you go deeper into her character, you find out that, okay, maybe she's a little ditzy, but she is actually aware of what's going on around her. She's very emotionally intelligent
mm-hmm.
and very, very giving and kind. Um, so the initial thing was like, who, what's happening here? Is this going to be? I kind of wondered if it was going to be a comedy from the way she was acting. Um, but then you find out that she's this person who is at least appearing very cheerful and kind and carrying on despite some real tragedy that she's had in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I ended up just admiring her more and more as the series went on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have the opposite reaction with you. Oh,
Oh.
okay, opposite, then it changed. Cause like, okay, I think I texted it to you before since like I met Tohru Honda early on in my life. I was like, oh, she's the protagonist. She exemplifies the characteristics that are admirable. And I was still a kid, so that's when you learn like fairy tales and things like that and what values you're supposed to uphold.
Mhm.
But like as I grew older, I texted this to you, but like I grew to resent the fact that she ended up becoming the sort of unofficial family therapist of the Soma family. But, like, I went around on it and just, like yeah, I still think that people trauma dump on her too much, but still.
Yeah, that's an interesting question for me. Her status as kind of the therapist, as you say, because it's true that people take her kindness as like the life preserver thrown to a drowning man, you know? For a lot
Mhm.
of the Somas, that's the first really solid kindness they've had in a while. So they do trauma dump all over her a lot of the time.
I
But
did make
I
note that,
uh,
like, oh, it didn't start trauma dumping until, like, oh, Hatsuharu came around. Everybody else seemed, like, cool before that.
mhm. I I will say that as much as that happens, I feel like Toru goes out of her way to be the therapist and to try and take on everyone's problems and try and fix everything, even regardless of her own needs. And I think that was part of her big character arc throughout the series that she had to work on being on putting herself first sometimes and her own desires.
Yeah, since that you mentioned that, that's a good segue to talk about, her mother,
Yes.
Kyoko. Kyoko talked a couple of times about the importance of being selfish in
Mhm.
some ways. Like, oh, everybody's selfish. It's okay to be selfish.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not even being selfish if you're asserting your needs and wants occasionally, because that's like self-care, and I'm not talking about, like, the hyped up, take baths and eat chocolate cake type self-care. I'm talking about just generally tending to your own needs
Mhm,
means looking at, "Okay, what's gonna nourish me physically and emotionally? What's going to make me happy?"
mm,
And it's important to be, quote, "selfish" sometimes because you can't effectively be selfless all the time. Even if you devote yourself to taking care of others, you have to have some energy to draw from.
mhm. Yeah. Okay, I should note that this to whoever is watching this, we watched the dubbed version on Hulu. Okay, I know that is a little bit taboo. Oh, you should always watch the subbed, but I could honestly say watching the dub freed me from a lot of like the baggage that will come later on in the series. The
Oh.
word that the English dub uses is selfishness, but it might have been a different word in a different language.
I've been watching the subversions
Mhm,
lately too. I haven't gotten crazy far into them, but again, audience, if I'm wrong, don't jump on me. But I do believe that they used the word selfish in the subtitled translations too.
mm. So, yeah, okay, okay, that's one of the things she preaches, but, we also learned that Kyoko used to be a gangster.
It's an awesome twist for a mom character.
There we go. An awesome twist for a mom character.
I mean, come on. She comes across at first as this super loving single mom who seems to be full of life lessons. On the surface level, it's just a badass twist. But on a deeper level, it's like, okay, that explains why she has some of this knowledge. And I like that they go with giving her a little bit of a checkered past because that's very real that people who have been in those situations and been through that stuff are the ones who usually know the most about life.
Yeah. Hard won wisdom.
Exactly.
Okay, since we're headed in that direction, we could talk about the other gangster in the cast, Uotani.
Uotani! I love her. I mean, I love both of Toru's friends,
Mhm.
but, like, Uotani has a very specific energy.
Yeah. I can't believe that was the toned down version of Uotani.
I mean, it's the Uotani who's not making death threats.
Okay, fair. Okay, we'll talk more about her when we get to like later seasons,
Sure, sure, sure.
especially with her romance department. But
Oh,
Toru's other friend, Hana-chan.
I think I kind of like her best.
Oh my gosh, Wave Girl. Ugh.
Like, I love how they come in with that in the series right off the bat. She's got this reputation around the school, and she's just able to scare people off with that, and I remember watching that and being like, "What?" In the best possible way. This thing that just this psychic thing that just exists in this show about high schoolers. Like, that's not completely out of character for anime, but it was, something, and, it got it got treated as a joke for a while. We
She's
get more of
an
an explanation,
amazing,
but
an amazing comedic character in some
she
way.
is! Oh my god, her deadpan, the drama, and all the stuff she does.
And then like she's this like has amazing mental psychic powers, and then she calls herself an idiot because she keeps
Yeah,
failing.
that's the funny thing. They set her up so that she could have been very dark academia
Mhm.
if they had decided to go that way. She has, with the style and the psychic stuff and everything. But no, she's got that vibe and she is also not a good student. And she's always thinking about food and she's they made her both very funny and unexpected and very, very interesting and perceptive.
Mhm. She probably has as much emotional intelligence as Toru.
Yes. Sh she's one of those characters who's always catching the others off guard,
Mhm. Yeah.
both with the waves thing and with her perception of things.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So we go with the Somas now. Let's
Oh, the
start.
Sohmas.
Yes, the Somas. Okay. So the Soma, the first one we kind of met was Shigure, but I don't want to talk about Shigure yet. Let's talk about Yuki.
Oh, Yuki. I have so many feelings about Yuki.
Can I expose myself a bit?
Yeah,
Yuki might be one of the first animated character I had a crush on.
no surprise there. I mean, he is one of those characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, full disclosure, I was team Yuki for quite a long time when I was watching this series. I was like, I would choose Yuki if I were in Toru's position. I would He's adorable and he's sweet and he's so conscientious. And the poor baby has been through so much trauma.
Oh.
Oh my god, I wanted to hug him, like, all throughout this series.
Ah, and
And I couldn't hug him because he'd turn into an animal.
he'd turn into a rat, but still, I don't. I
I'd hug him if he was a rat. I don't see a problem with that. But he I don't know how much of his character arc you want me to talk about right now. Um,
we could. There's more avenues that we could put in. I think you put in the Yuki versus Kyo discussion in season 3.
yeah, yeah, we can talk about that bit later. But yeah, I think I can safely say I was charmed by Yuki from the start.
Mm-hmm. I also have opinions about his like complex with Kyo because yeah, a lot. Anyway, um
Kyo makes one hell of an entrance into this series.
he does. It's just like poor
But
Shigure in some ways. His houses always need the repairs.
I feel no sympathy for Shigure, but I when Kyo busted through the whole wall practically
The
through
roof.
the damn roof. How did he go through the roof? I have questions about that. They're not gonna get answered. But I I had a split second where I was like, "Are we in fucking Naruto now? What's happening here?" Um,
How fragile are these houses? Should we start?
exactly. And that's another question that I have about the whole Zodiac thing. You know, you have these members of the Zodiac who regularly fight each other. Kyo regularly gets like dropped on his head or busted into walls or basically gets handled in ways that should have killed him several times over.
Well, cats do not have 9 lives, so
That's true. And he he has multiple times in the anime where he actually has cat-like motions. Like, I do you know that thing cats do where they'll leap backwards when they're startled,
Mhm.
and it's almost like they've been shot backwards out of a cannon? He had a moment like that when Shigure opened a door. He lands on all fours when he's jumping from high places.
And he always lands on his feet.
Right. I mean, that first entrance of Kyo t and Tohru trying to step in to stop it takes the anime immediately from, "Alright, high school anime with people who've got secrets," to, "Oh, this is a fantasy anime,"
Mm.
because suddenly Toru's got an armful of 3 animals.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get to discuss that like Toru was homeless the first time we saw her.
I think that was what kept me from altogether writing her off when I first met her because she's so bubbly and eager to please that it can verge on ditzy, but then the fact that she's been through all this stuff and that she is wanting to be independent and taking it on herself to take care of herself and do things this way, it showed a conscientiousness and a strength. Especially because, like, I imagine myself doing that in high school, and
Aww.
"No way! I could never."
I'm in two ways of that scene. Sometimes I felt, oh, she's so considerate and strong, but at the same time, I'm like, girl,
This ain't
you're not
healthy.
this ain't healthy. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not being selfish like your mom says you should be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's really meant to start off her character that way, I think.
Mm.
That's that's where she fundamentally has some growing to do, and I did get a laugh out of the moment when, Yuki and Shigure follow her back to her tent, and she's in there, and she pokes her head out, and the 2 of them are just staring at her like, "The f."
And Shigure is such an okay, I will probably have to bleep that word, but he just laughed at her face and just started pointing at her.
I I have a lot of mixed opinions about Shigure that I think had best come later because we don't find out a lot about him until at least, what, if not late in season 1, then the juicy stuff really doesn't come out until season 3.
Yeah, season 3, despite being such a small season, is just, like, so juicy. So
It really
juicy.
is.
Okay, so Shigure but for now, he is that older cousin-ish figure who owns the house that everybody breaks and
It's
is
kind of a
kinda
perv.
kind of a perv. Okay, since we're here, let's talk about Shigure's profession. Yeah, and that
Profession.
profession and his
Uh-huh.
poor, very poor editor.
I will say it. I'm gonna say it now, and I maintain this. Shigure is a schemer in every sense of the word, and that extends to even his more playful moods,
Mhm.
because he seems to consider it a lot of fun to torment his poor editor.
Oh my gosh. It's like a joke for him. I'm like, okay, the editor, Mitsuru. There we go. Mitsuru. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think she needs to chill in some ways and realize, oh, that's his pattern. And just like, that's what he always does and anticipate it in some ways.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she struck me as, younger, like, she's definitely younger than Shigure.
Hmm.
She's not like a jaded editor who has seen writers when they're on their bullshit and
Hmm.
knows how to handle it. She's definitely still more high strung. Shigure just I don't know if that's a I don't know much about the zodiac, you understand, the Chinese zodiac, so
Hmm.
I don't know if that kind of playfulness and mischievousness is a quality that's also typical in dogs.
Hmm.
Do
I
you have
don't
any
know
idea
too.
about that?
I may be Asian, but I don't know enough of the Chinese zodiac.
Fair.
I'm I'm Filipino, not Chinese. Not even Filipino Chinese.
I gotcha, I gotcha. But yeah, it's I mean, I have a suspicions that all of the Zodiac characters have qualities that line up with the animals that they are, but
Hmm.
that it's also just an innate part of their personality,
Hmm.
like Zodiac or not. You know, like Shigure is the dog, but he is also just mischievous and he's ridiculous.
Okay, who do you want to talk to about next? Do you want to talk about the other three musketeers?
Who would those be?
Ayame, Hattori, Shigure.
Oh god. I feel sorry for Hattori for multiple reasons. I confess I was really confused by his place in the zodiac for a while because when he was a seahorse, I didn't know that seahorses are called sea dragons. So I didn't
Mm.
know he was the dragon for a while. So I thought seahorse, I thought he was the horse. So
Oh, that
then
makes sense.
then when the actual horse showed up, I was like, "Wait, so who is he?" But, yeah, Hattori has I think that Hattori is the first really overt look that we get into Akito's cruelty and
Mm.
violence.
Entitled is what I call Akito.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with Akito.
Mhm.
Um, but, Hattori losing sight in one of his eyes because Akito wouldn't let him marry the love of his life. He's really, for me, an example of selfless love
Mm.
because he erased Kana's memories so that she wouldn't be hurting anymore.
Mm.
And later, when he sees her and hears that she's getting married and he sees her looking so happy, he's genuinely glad. There's sadness in him for his own sake, but he's really one of the characters in the series who he's kind of like Tohru in that way. Less, enthusiastic about it, more jaded, but he he offers up kindness to people very readily without asking for anything in return.
Mm. I rewatched that episode today, and I was like, our first impressions of Hattori was just like, he is this one scary, stern dude.
Exactly. And then you kind of peel back the layers of this guy, and it's it's a lot more complicated than that. Um, the reason I feel sorry for him
Mhm.
is because he's in the same crew as Shigure and Ayame, who are both morons. Now, let's qualify that. You can be extremely intelligent and still be a moron. In fact, that's how I consider those 2, because Shigure is the schemer and Ayame is a lot.
I think Shigure is the one who pointed this out, that Hattori in some ways think he's older, much older than he actually is.
Yes. Yes, he definitely acts like acts much more serious
Mhm.
than anyone else in the crew, with the possible exception of Kureno. But even then, that's more reserve. Like with Hattori, even when he's reserved all the time, you
Mm.
know? I would like to talk about Ayame, actually.
Okay, let's go on to Ayame. Oh, he is hilarious. I kind of love him for being hilarious, but like in person, I will be want to be far away from this dude.
I I honestly don't know how I would handle having him around in person. There's so many things he does where I would either turn red when he says it, or I would want to I think to handle him, I'd have to be able to be on a level with him where I could manhandle him a little bit, like, you know, punch him in the arm or something when he's being too pervy, or, like, tell him tell him to shut up when he's being loud at a really inappropriate time. But at the same time, the amount of he's so over the top that he's pretty tone deaf to, situations, to reading the room, to trying to connect with people on
Mhm.
a more genuine level. His quest to make up for,
Pass.
neglecting Yuki when
Mhm.
they were younger, uh, he really gets in his own way by
Uh,
just being so over the top about it.
I guess I'm like, I don't know. Part of me, you want to be yourself with the person you want to bond with. That's, but at the same time, I'm just like, dude, that's a complete 180.
I admire his goal, but it's like when he comes in and starts doing things like embroidering brotherly love on Yuki's clothes without permission, or I will say the one moment I was just so genuinely glad to see him. Like, most of the time when I see him, I'm at least a little bit like, "Oh boy, here he is." But the one time I was just relieved to see him was during Yuki's parent-teacher conference.
Season 3.
Alright, I'll hold off. He's a little bit of the clown character with some depths behind it all,
Mhm.
and then behind that is more over the top stuff.
Okay. The thing is, we talked about this before. It seems that like the um zodiac characteristics for the older somas don't really apply as much. S- Ayame is supposed to be the snake, but he's not very snake-like other than his long hair.
I don't know, I guess it depends on what people associate the snake zodiac sign with,
Hmm.
because, we're I think we're attributing things like the snake gets a lot of negative connotations
In
as a
Western
symbol.
society.
Yeah, and I feel like its meaning in the zodiac, the Chinese zodiac. Let me look this Chinese zodiac up just so we have some reference point.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessarily the same. I will say that it was a really terrible first entrance that he made by slithering up Toru's dress. Like, and then God, later in that episode when he is trying to connect to Yuki and he does it by slithering out of the front of her dress, out of the bust line, and Yuki is just like, "You son of a bitch." It was
Let's skin you. Let's turn you into your reptilian flesh into food.
like, why? Why did he think that was a good idea?
He's kind of a tailor, so maybe he sees naked bodies all the time, so it's nothing to him.
I don't know. I don't think tailors. I think they see more mannequins than naked bodies. Let's see. I'm looking at a thing about the Chinese zodiac, and the snake is characterized as enigmatic, intelligent, and wise. Um,
The wisdom does not come true,
that
especially with the relationship with Yuki.
that doesn't seem right for Ayame.
Well, I applaud the author for not sticking for her creative freedom and not sticking to whatever the Chinese zodiac prescribes as the characteristics.
Okay, okay. There's more about this. Here's something that does really resonate with
Mm-hmm.
Ayame, I think. It says snakes have a deep and complex mind, but if they love with their entire heart.
Mm.
That's very Ayame because he may be over the top, but that's his nature to be really all in on things, even with his friends. Like when he's checking in on Hattori,
Mm-hmm.
he so fervently wants good things for his friends. He wants so fervently to connect with Yuki again. I agree that the qualities are a little more loosely applied to some
Mm-hmm.
of the older members. Now,
Yes. Do you want to talk about somebody?
well, Hatsuharu comes to mind.
Hatsuharu. Okay. I don't know how to describe Hatsuharu. He is cool. He may be an idiot, but I think he has more power than the series or the other characters give him credit for.
I don't think that he's an idiot, honestly. Cool, okay, in the sense, like, he has, a particular style
Mhm.
that he sticks to, like, alright, there's that surface level, but to me, Hatsuharu is one of the more empathetic and clear-sighted characters in the whole series.
Mhm.
He looks out for the people that he cares about, he has this he has this funny duality with Light and Dark Haru because Dark Haru is, um,
Scary.
I was gonna say a problem, but yeah, same idea, just like very aggro,
Mhm.
very like a rampaging ox, really. You don't want to get in their way. You don't want to
Mhm.
make them angry. But when he's Light Haru, he's very mellow.
He's very mellow. He's very thoughtful and considerate, and
Yes.
he is so giving to especially the people he loves.
Yeah.
Yuki comes to mind because he is weirdly very loving towards Yuki.
Well, it's like it was his first love, you know? And
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know whether the anime is defining that as, yeah, okay, Patsuharu had a crush on a boy as a little kid, and that's a thing, or whether they're, leaving it ambiguous and more of a jokey thing.
From
Mhm.
what I see, like even though a it's been a constant repeated joke that like Yuki appears to be feminine. My cousin
Right.
calls him fruity. So he might have come across as more it doesn't come across to us because we're not cartoons, but like he might have come across as like very feminine as a young guy, and B it could just be simply he's bi or bi curious.
Yep. Yeah, it could go either way. But that aside, um,
Mhm.
yeah, he even says it. Yuki was his first love,
He was
and
not afraid to say it out loud either or demonstrate it.
yeah, that's one thing that is very distinct about Haru. In this group of people who are all very traumatized in different ways, and many of
Mhm.
whom are very emotionally closed up, Haru is always stating his feelings outright. He's very straightforward about these things, and it's a very brave stance to take in the with the family that he's in.
Yeah, I think I grew to admire Hatsuharu more this time around I watch it.
Hmm,
There's more depth to him. We later on found out that like he knows exactly which people to ask to get what he wants in some ways,
right,
especially when it comes to like he knows exactly what the dynamic is between the three musketeers and the all the adults in the room, and he knows how to get what he wants, and
right.
he knows how to take care of like other people.
Yeah, I think he's another example of just high emotional intelligence.
Mm.
At the same time, he has these moments of I don't even know how to describe it, the moments where he just kind of goes all weird. Like
Mhm.
where the others walk out of the school and they find him standing in the sprinklers requesting ginger pork for summer break. Or when he says things like, "Oh, look, Yuki's doppelganger is here."
Mhm.
He has these offbeat moments. where you just kind of like, "Huh?" But I'm not mad at them. They make him a little bit more quirky.
Shall we talk about one of our
Okay,
favorites?
Momiji.
Momiji! Ah, one of our favorites.
Sweet, sweet Momiji. Oh my god, talking of emotional intelligence.
His appearance is cute, adorable. I think Momiji launched a a kind of a trope of a character of his
Really?
own. Yeah, like the boy Lolita who's actually older and is very related to bunnies and emotional maturity.
That's a whole
Yeah,
trope, huh?
yeah. I okay. This is not related. This is for the viewers because like Goldie hasn't watched this yet. But I'm pretty much sure that Momiji is the template for Honey Senpai from our High School Host Club. So that's I'm putting it out there for the viewers. Okay. But Luigi is one of our favorites because he's cute, he's emotionally intelligent, he's just funny in some ways, and he knows what tone to strike at all times. I'm like, he knows when to be funny, he knows when to be cute, he knows when to be serious and sad, and I'm just like, whoa, dude.
He also has a knack for processing his own emotions
Mm.
in a way that's healthier than most of the zodiac, even possibly Hatsuharu,
Mm.
because Haru is very kind and emotionally intelligent, but Haru thinks about himself or processing his own feelings less often than kind of taking care of others,
Mm-hmm.
while Momiji is has a knack for processing his own difficult feelings. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the fact that his mom had her memories erased and he has a little sister who does not know him.
Oh, it's just I. It's honestly a lot to ask a little kid that. It's and it's a lot for a little kid to accept that and go with it.
I honestly do question the decision to erase his mom's memories before getting her some mental health treatment because okay, there's this whole thing about, you know, parents of zodiac kids either get really overprotective or they reject their kids. But I don't think it was as simple as that with Momiji's mom. I think that she was suffering from postpartum depression
Mm.
and that was a thing that just never lifted as Momiji got older because she never got treatment.
And she
And
never got the chance to hold him after she would.
after the initial shock.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I like we see that she's functioning again she gets when she loses all her memories of him, but I feel like she wasn't in a good mental space to make any decisions
Mm-hmm.
about the memories. Regardless, what happened happened, and it's to shoulder. But he does it with a surprising amount of grace and
Mm-hmm.
pep in his daily life.
Yeah. I don't know what to feel about the father.
I don't know. I think I was so conflicted about the decisions his dad made because it's you know, you're trying to both see it from the dad's point of view and from, you know, your own opinions. So from his point of view, his wife was suffering, and I don't know, maybe mental health treatment wasn't an option for Momiji's mom. I mean, how many therapists can you go to talk about how your baby changes into an animal when you hold them?
I'm putting this out there now. There should have been like a parent of the Zodiac group therapy session.
There there needed to be a therapist. Like Hatori was the family doctor. There needed to be a family therapist for the Sohma clan,
Eh, but you know, the
specifically
stigma.
for the inner circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know that's part of it. I understand that. They still all needed so much therapy.
uh, because I'm like, I'm laughing because of how sad it is. At the same time, oh my god, thinking about like the stigma of mental health. Like, okay, let's set up the setting of this time period. I'm gonna break from the usual talking about the characters.
Sure.
I feel the series is supposed to be 20 years ago specifically. It's around 1999. I figured this
Mhm.
out through when the series was happening, and the at one point it was mentioned that Momiji was dance performing. So it was the year of the rabbit they were celebrating for. And
Right.
so that's what I came in the 99. But I also noticed that a lot of the tech they have in the anime wouldn't have appeared until like a decade or so after that. So the series comes in a very weird timeline, let's just say. So yeah, mental health attitudes. Well, let's just say it's just not an option. The past is a different country, and the setting is a different country.
Going back to the mental health thing,
Mm-hmm.
go back even a few years into the past, and mental health services are lots worse. Momiji is a good personification of a young heart and an old soul in the same body. It's like you live out your days with a lot of zeal, a lot of that youthful energy and spirit and kind of newness and novelty to
Mm-hmm.
your approach in life. Hence the young heart of with kind of your reception of things.
Mm-hmm.
But then the old soul means that there's a kind of steady bedrock to his personality and a clarity which results in that emotional intelligence, that emotional processing that he's able to do.
Mm.
So, it's like think of it like he's like one of those balloons that have a weight attached to the string at the bottom. He's
Mm-mm.
buoyant but grounded.
We should move on to a different character. I am thinking right now because like he's very quick. Ritsu.
Ritsu. I mean, Ritsu is really kind of a ball of panic. We see that we meet his mother a couple episodes before, and so it's not surprising that he acts the way he does. I did think it was kind of sad that he must have picked up her anxiety and her apologizing for everything, including him, as apologizing for his existence and his existence being a problem.
I'm very much convinced that like Ritsu will still be like that even if he was not a zodiac. Like I feel like the anxiety that his mom displayed would have been there even if he wasn't a zodiac, and he would still adopt the same characteristics.
Interesting. I think that some of her anxiety definitely stemmed from the zodiac thing. You know, she was one of the overprotective zodiac parents. But it is true that she had a personality that was was naturally overreacting to things. I mean, every other sentence that the characters said to her in the bathhouse scene, she would freak out. So I guess it's likely he would have still had that influence, zodiac or no zodiac. What do you think about
Mhm.
Ritsu's fondness for women's clothes?
I don't know. I think it's just he never really explained it and what it means to him, but like from what I understand, he doesn't really identify as a girl.
No, no. I mean, my feminist self kind of liked that he was a boy who wore those clothes. You know, my brain I was like heck yeah, gender bending, like or not gender bending, but you know, screw gender roles. Wear what you want to wear, kind of deal. But the the interesting thing is that by the end of the season, he stops wearing women's clothes.
Yeah, by the end of the series, he stopped. Yeah, honestly, we met.
Series, my bad.
Yeah, we met. Ritsu kind of in and out of the series. He was.
Mhm.
We met his mom, then we met him. We had one heck of an episode with him,
Right.
and then the next time we see him is like on the very last episode, wearing like traditionally man's clothes, his hair cut, and
Right.
dating the editor.
He's the only Soma Zodiac character who we actually don't get to see a complete character arc of in the anime.
Mm. And that's okay. There's a lot of characters.
There really are.
Tohru is not the family therapist, so she can't just like follow every story arc everywhere.
True, but there are plenty of episodes that don't even involve Tohru,
Hmm.
where we see the Soma members growing.
I guess.
Now, I have more to say about Shigure, but we can save that for the season 3 discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Ritsu. He's in and out real quick. And then who else is there? Oh, Kisa.
Sweet little Kisa. I mean, the first time we meet her, she's a tiger cub and she bites the hell out of Toru's hand. I mean, my first impression of her was very much of that defensive animal position. But then we finally meet her in human form, and she is so vulnerable and sweet. You know, Toru turns into this big sister figure to her. And I really loved that whole her initial arc where she's not speaking because she's been bullied, and you see that Yuki identifies with that. And
Yuki identifies really a lot. I rewatched that episode today and was like, oh, wow. Yeah, a lot of the Yuki's trauma is just like foreshadowed in this episode.
mhm. And of course, Toru can empathize with some of it too because she
Hmm.
was bullied in school. But it's that episode was maybe not the beginning, but it was certainly one of the first stirrings of
Hmm.
Yuki's journey. Which he's one of the characters who does the most growing throughout the
Yeah.
series. When he tells Kisa like you gotta face up to your fears. That doesn't mean they stop being
Mm.
scary, but like let's both try.
Yeah, and by the end of Kisa's episode, she is starting to go back to
Mhm.
her
To
school,
school.
and Yuki accepted the position of president of the student
Right.
council. Um I think I wrote this down because I find it interesting. Kisa's teacher sent her a letter while she was away and saying that, hey, loving yourself is the greatest love of all, essentially.
Mhm.
And Yuki disagreed. And he said that, oh, when somebody is there, when you feel secure, there's someone there who accepts you as who you are, that's when you start loving yourself.
I don't know how I feel about that take, because I think that maybe what he was trying to convey was that it's really just not uh, realistic to to expect someone to love themselves with no foundation of anyone
Mm-hmm.
else
Mm-hmm.
giving that to you. Like if you haven't had someone in your life, a parental figure, a sibling figure, a friend, something
Yeah, and we have
who just
hints.
accepts you.
Yeah, that's kind of hinted Yuki's feelings towards Toru, but we could talk about it in season 2 discussion. And we also meet Kisa's mother, who we could see is like a very tired woman.
Yes. Yeah, she's definitely having trouble trying to understand why Kisa's not talking. And I like that they made that relationship complicated because she is exhausted and she's past the point where she can really be helpful to Kisa. But
Mm-hmm.
when they have some time apart and she gets some rest in, she calls Tohru up, telling her details about Kisa to keep her comfortable, checking in on her. So it's like there is love there, but sometimes parents just run out of steam and don't perform as well as they want to.
I really like that relationship, and I'm just like, I find it realistic. Some way, like there is love there. Clearly cares for her daughter, but at the same time, a mother is just a human.
Right. Your parent doesn't always understand what's going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a kid who won't talk to you, there's only so much that you can do to figure out what's going on. If you
Yeah.
don't know that they're being bullied, how are you supposed to do anything to help?
Mm. It's I find it a very graceful take to parenthood in that way.
Yes, that's definitely the right word. Now, we've been talking about Kisa. Let's get to her little lover boy, Hiro.
I remember what you texted me about him.
When we first meet him, he is such a little shit.
Yep, that's the word.
He was acting like such a brat
Mm-hmm.
when we first meet him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he runs off with Toru's picture of her mother, and I was like, "Oh, kid, you do not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Get the hell back here."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know though. As things went on, he felt to me both like a very good representation of a middle school boy and also, like many of the Sohmas, remarkably mature and self-aware
Mm-hmm.
for his age, because
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
has these he's so sassy. He has these outbursts where he hurts people because he doesn't really know the line between far enough and too far yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you're dealing with figuring that out in middle school. You're dealing with puberty, with all kinds of feelings and hormones. And then he's a member of the Sohma family of what happened to
Yeah.
Kisa because he told Akito that, that's a lot
Mm-hmm.
for a sixth grader. And throughout the series, he has these moments of like, oh crap, I messed up again. Like I said the wrong thing again. But I want to be a man for, I want to be a man. I want to be a good guy for Kisa, I want to be more mature. Like, why can't I do this? And it's this duality of like, he is a sassy little shit, but he's also being very hard on himself, which is also typical for middle schoolers, or near middle schoolers. I think when we first meet him, he's about to enter. You know, what's your take on him?
I didn't like him. He reminds me way too much of those annoying relatives you have, and just like, screw you, I want to get away from you. This guy. I would like you when you're in like your late 20s, but not now. You still need to figure shit out, and I don't want to be the next subject.
I wouldn't want to be his subject either. I have the feeling that he would, like, I feel like I would sass him back much more readily than Tohru did, but I also have a feeling that he might outmaneuver me. Not necessarily in the most intelligent way, but in the way that sassy kids have a knack for doing, where you're just like, you don't have a good answer for whatever stuff they're saying.
Yeah. So there are two more characters I want to talk left, but Akito, we're gonna talk more in depth with her in season 3, I think. But we need to talk about Kagura.
Yeah. I mean, she makes just as violent an entrance as Kyo does, but it's this duality of her being almost caricaturesquely cute and like uwu, kind of like fangirly, I'm in love with you kind of deal. So it's such, you know, she'll do that, and then 2 seconds later she's like drop kicking Kyo through Shigure's door once again.
He was running away as soon as he knows he was around, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
She is so persistent and so ruthless, but I did notice that she kind of acts different at home than she does around Kyo.
I feel like this is something related to her zodiac spirit. Don't quote me on that, but I just have like a feeling. But
Yeah.
she really latched on to him, and she just like would not let go in some ways. Okay, let's look up what the characteristic.
The boar, the pig is. Let's see, I've got it here. So pigs or boars, they're symbols of wealth, blessed with good fortune. They're energetic and always enthusiastic, even for boring jobs. Bit materialistic. Oh, here they've got a specialized thing on men and women born in the pig year. So when you look at the women's section, it says women born in the pig year are full of excitement. They tend to and isn't that Kagura?
Kagura?
It goes on to say, however, they are sometimes over friendly. In their excitement, they can forget to give others personal space. I feel like Fruits Basket took those qualities for Kagura and rolled with them hard.
Oh, okay. Shigure and all the Three Musketeers are tiny bit affected by their zodiac spirit. Kagura is the complete opposite.
She's a lot. She's really played off as, again, this seems to be a trend with Fruits Basket. You have characters who are largely comedic effect in the beginning, and later on they have more interesting stories. But God, in the first season, she is just like crashing through surfaces no one has any business breaking, dragging Kyo around.
breaking Shigure's house, and Shigure is like calculating how much money you have to spend for repairs.
He makes the boys fix the house sometimes.
Yeah, but materials.
True. True. So I think that's, unless we're talking about non-zodiac somas as well, then we could bring in Kyo's master.
Yes, that's the last person I want to talk about because, as you know, the season ends with Kyo's master visiting.
Yeah, so he immediately turns out to be a better father figure to Kyo than Kyo's own dad, from what little
It's
we know of Kyo's parents in the first season.
yeah, he is special in a way because he's the grandchild of the previous cat spirit,
And
and I think he part of that lends to a lot of empathy towards this child. Well, it also helps that
yeah,
he was
I
so
remember
much older.
yeah, in the beginning is that he's kind of taking care of Kyo to try and make up for the guilt at rejecting his grandfather as a kid.
Hmm.
And then it grows into just genuinely loving and caring about Kyo. I mean, I don't know. He's just like a really morally solid character. Finally some positive
Hmm.
parental influence in the Sohma clan.
Yeah, he's steady and I totally forgot I looked at our outline and I totally forgot to bring up the topic of the idiotic traveler.
Yeah. The Idiotic Traveler was an interesting thing to bring in, especially with Momiji as the one bringing it up, because he's got this half Japanese, half German background. And this story felt very much like an uncensored version of a Brothers Grimm fairy tale.
Oh, I did not know that. Tell me.
Well, there's the Japanese influence in there too, but just this sense of a very kind of grim, depressing fairy tale. Like, for example, that in an older version of Cinderella, in the Grimm version, like, you've got the evil stepsisters and the evil stepmother in all of the versions. But in the Grimm's version, the stepmother actually drives the stepsisters to cut off pieces of their feet to try
Mm-hmm.
and fit their feet into the slipper.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the story, they both have their eyes pecked out by birds.
Oh.
So this story of the traveler who loses everything and then slowly loses all their body parts, it definitely had that dark fairy tale feel. And Momiji kind of lines up the this idiotic traveler with Tohru
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the generosity, of the sometimes self-deprecating generosity.
Yeah, because I bring it up because I noticed that in every season, season one, season two, season three, at some point, Momiji always brings up that story of the idiotic traveler.
Oh, does he do? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, I forgot what part he mentioned it in season two, but like season three, he mentioned it after the whole Akito episode, and they meet in the Momiji and Akito meet each other on the hospital.
Ah, that's right. I remember that bit. Yeah, Momiji lines it up as he doesn't think the traveler is actually idiotic because
Mhm.
they just live an existence where the viewpoint is, what's the point of living if you can't help others and give to others when you're able.
Mhm.
I do think that the traveler lines up with Toru in terms of needing to learn some some self-restraint for their own well-being. But,
Mm,
Momiji
admires
shows a
that.
sort of admiration, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a separate discussion about, if we had a world full of people who were
Mm.
just like that, instead of people who were like that and people who took advantage of people like that, like in the story. That's a separate discussion.
I think it was Yuki who made this observation at some episode in season one. That Toru is the type of person who deserves the world but doesn't ask for it. And then soon after that, there's a scene of Akito talking to Shigure saying like, "Oh, I know I always ask for the world."
Yeah, I think the exact words were asking for the moon.
Oh yeah, asking for the moon. Yeah.
That really does kind of set up Toru and Akito as opposites for a
Hmm.
while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, like we see Akito early on in the festival,
Mhm.
and he was scary the first time I met him when I was like a kid. But I since learned all these revelations about him, and when I rewatch it the second time, my first impression is she's acting like Regina George from Mean Girls.
Didn't see that one coming. I mean, I met Akito and immediately identified Akito as an abuser. As like, "Oh, okay, I know I'm not gonna like this character. This is gonna be this is gonna be a
Hmm.
problem." And it kept getting worse as the series
Hmm.
went on. Once we start seeing Akito, they really stack up that character as someone who is abusive and who is mentally disturbed.
Yeah, we could talk about it more later, but like the first impressions, especially the framing around this character, the videography, the recent scene, everything.
Yeah,
Okay, well, let's talk about the last arc, we should say, of season one, where
Kyo's true form.
Kyo's true form, yeah, Master took away the beads and Kyo transformed.
Yeah, that was really a big make or break moment in his arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, once again, I think they did a good job of upping the tension and being realistic by having Toru not just be completely unbothered by it. She first sees his true form and she's in shock and she starts running away and she has to stop to be sick and everything and she doesn't know what to do. They give you that realism of this being a real shock and really unexpected, but then she goes after him
Mm-hmm.
because it's like in all her confusion she knows that he still matters to her.
There is so much to talk about in this series. I just wanted to go back a bit for episode 5 when Toru went back to his her family, ended up
Uh-huh.
actively choosing to live with Yuki and Kyo, and that still
And
translate in this
yeah.
scene. Like, oh, she's actively choosing to be with these people and comforting
Yeah,
them.
that's what makes the difference, that she
Mm-hmm.
keeps choosing them, and she's choosing Kyo in this scene, in all of him. She's not claiming to have wrapped her mind around all of it. She says to him, like, I admit it, I am scared by this. I've never seen you like this before, but despite that, you're still you, and I still want you in my life."
Yeah. I like the detail that Kyo noticed that she was shaking while she's hanging on to him. Like she's still
Right.
scared, but she is pushing away that fear just so she could comfort him. They also, as a visual medium, we couldn't tell that he stinks like to high heaven, but that's what the impression we get. And imagine how much Toru is just like trying really hard to comfort him, so despite his
And it's
swinging and
it's it's
stench.
and it's not just to comfort him, but she's trying to hang on to him. to
Mhm.
keep him from leaving, you know? And he like, my god, he attacks her. He
Ugh,
hurts her. That
yeah.
that was rough for me to watch because I would just like, "What are you doing, Kyo? This is." And then, Tohru proves herself an
Mm,
angel once again by
mhm.
coming back after that and refusing to let him leave. A lot of Kyo's trauma translates into anger and aggression.
Mhm.
So it made sense for his character, but I wasn't real happy about it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I, like, prefer Yuki for the longest while, for most of my life.
I will say that the first time after that episode, the first time I saw Kyo really smile was so lovely to see. To see him relax now that someone has accepted all of him, and the aftermath of that reveal when Kazuma, he leaves because he thinks Kyo doesn't want him in his life anymore.
Mhm.
And they have this adorable heart to heart about, you know, I, I hope that I can be worthy of calling you father someday and you calling me son. And Cosmo's like, we're already there, dude.
I'm so confused as to why Kyo didn't live with him afterwards.
I think it was because I remember Kazuma saying that he had determined that Shigure's house was the healthiest place for him to be living.
Mm,
So I think that factored in. I think that Kazuma did not want him anywhere near Akito. And I think also being, the whole Soma compound is a place that's not friendly to Kyo in general.
yeah, this
He's the cat.
the outward outcast, very explicitly the outcast.
Exactly. That's how he's seen and that's how he's treated there. That's reason enough.
Season 2, we welcome more characters. We finally meet all of the Somas, and we met new
Right.
characters that will join Yuki, Yuki's circle
Oh
specifically.
boy.
Okay. Okay, last the final two Somas. We have Rin and we have what's his name again? Kaz
Good enough.
yeah, we have Rin and we have Kureno. So Rin, impressions.
So Ren, the first time we meet her, I mean, she does feel very much like a aggressive spooked horse. She is the
Mm,
zodiac horse, but in that she is kind of oscillating between being very aggro and running away. She kind of appears and then dips from the other characters.
I think it's season 2 where I kind of start letting go of my impression that Toru is the family therapist. Because I think it was Rin who started asking, why does everybody have to meet her?
Yep.
Like,
I mean, she does end up having her own crying session with Toru.
crying session.
She starts out really, yeah, I don't know, closed off, I think is the word for it. She's got her defenses up. She's ready to lash out if it
Hmm.
comes to it to keep people away from her. And as the series goes on, we get into the stuff that's happened to her.
Hmm.
You know, she's like Yuki in that she has an abusive family situation, but it's a different kind of abuse. You know,
Hmm.
there was actual physical abuse going on, and then there was this
Hmm.
just total rejection of her. So she's been rejected by her parents. She was rejected by Akito, thrown out a
Mhm.
damn window by Akito.
I know. I'm just like, dude, what the fudge?
Like, I understand why she's got so much to deal with and why she's trying to deal with it all on her own,
Hmm.
and that's not successful, as you might imagine.
It's really not. She's kind of in and out. We later found out that she has the goal of destroying the zodiac curse,
Mhm.
and I think my attitudes towards the series is more reflected in Rin more than anybody else. Like
Yeah,
she's the one who's questioning why do we have to meet up with this random person who happens to know our secret. And in season 3 she asked, why are we all just forgiving Akito for everything? And I'm just like,
right.
she's asking all the questions I want to ask.
Mhm. Rin is, I think, one of the more like, all of the characters are well written in this
Hmm.
series, but Rin really feels like one of the characters who, though clear in her morality, is a lot of shades of gray in
Hmm.
other things. She's very, very nuanced.
Hmm.
She has this thing about pushing people away, and especially pushing kind people away, people
Hmm.
like Haru and Tohru, because she thinks that she's a person who takes advantage of kind people and she doesn't want like she's so aggro about like telling Toru to back off with trying to break the family curse, the Sohma curse, and stay out of it, it's none of your business kind of approach, when her motive for keeping Toru out of it is that she doesn't want Toru to get hurt or taken advantage of.
She is
And
complex and we have so much more to talk about her. But Kureno,
would I
I
know?
want to talk him briefly about him now, then more about him towards the end when we talk about the end of the seasons because that's when he
Sure.
really shines. Kureno is the
Yes.
rooster. That's how we're gonna put it. Kureno is the last rooster and the one that's probably will have the least interaction with Toru. But surprisingly, he has a deep connection with Uotani.
Of all people.
Okay, I don't know. I'm of two minds about this whole Kureno and Uotani relationship thingy
Mhm.
because one age gap, like she is 16, he is like around 20ish, but like it won't be such a big deal if they were much older, but at the same time that's in, I would say, dangerous territory.
Now, how old is she when they meet? I lose track of the age timeline.
Okay, let me
16 or
see.
17?
Yeah, 16 or 17 is the right age, but like the age of like consent in Japan is around that age anyway. But still, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, there's the 9-year age difference. I I had a little bit of hesitation about that too, but I've seen that kind of age gap appear before in anime, so I kind
Hmm.
of let it go in favor of, like, just seeing how Fruits Basket has been largely a show about connection, just
Okay.
exploring what the connection is between the 2 of them.
On the side note, it's not just anime that this happens to. In Anne of Green Gables, there is famously that teacher who has a relationship with a student.
Oh, yes.
Mhm. So
Mhm.
that fits really well, but like Toru's parents also have a similar relationship. This is not in the anime, but it's in the manga and the comic books. Kyoko was like a student, and the father is a student teacher when they first meet. And let's just leave it at that. Another thing I want to talk about in the Kureno and Uotani relationship is that they met each other a total of 2 times, but the connection is like so intense.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. It does kind of smack of the Insta bond trope, but I think even if it's still unrealistic, it is backed up by some real life stuff. Like they have this age gap going, yet Uotani is much more worldly than Kureno is. You know, she
Mm,
sees this mess of a man drop a stack of what snacks in the convenience store
mhm.
and is laughs herself silly. She's like, "You know you can use a basket for that, right? How the hell are you 26 and you've never been to a convenience store?"
Yeah.
Like what so that's an interesting dynamic. How she's got a lot more experience than him and
Mm.
how, you know, she tells her friends, "Oh, he's kind of like Tohru
He's
in
so
that
clumsy like Toru.
like yes, he's clumsy, but he's kind too."
Mhm.
And she I don't know.
Mhm.
Even with those real life stuff, it does feel a little inexplicable how quickly they bond, but like I'm still here for it.
Like instant connection does happen. There are some stories of people who fall in love with first sight. It's but like what I really like, despite this mess of a relationship, is that Kureno makes an effort to stay away. And I appreciate that in some ways. This is too weird of a relationship to go full force on. But I like the fact
It
that
really is.
there's a lot of like hesitation and a lot of thought behind it, even though it's still weird.
Yeah, he's very much like strong attraction, but he's thinking about all of the moral implications and all of the realities that he's still tied to. I really
Mm,
gotta give him that.
mm. Not much of concession. Anyway, let's go talk about the student council members. As we mentioned
Oh,
before, okay,
a hot mess
we
of a student council.
okay. Let's go with the easiest two. Okay, so as you know, Yuki joined the student council. He
He's the
starts hanging
president.
out. He's the president. He started hanging out with a different crew because of this new responsibility. Let's start out with the two easiest one. Naohito Sakuragi, who is the squirt of the group.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the perfectionist, short-tempered,
Mm,
no patience for incompetence,
mm-hmm,
kind of a Napoleon complex.
kind of, tiny bit.
He's yeah, I don't know. He doesn't go that deep.
He doesn't go that deep, but we appreciate someone that like is on a mission.
That yeah, he tries to be competent.
Yeah,
And then you've got
Kimi.
Kimi.
Oh my God, Kimi. I swear to God, she's a troll. I love her. In the she's this beautiful troll that is out there to mess with anyone. When I was trying to read the manga and I thought she was so beautiful, I know she's trying to be annoying and the writer is trying to make her super annoying, but I'm like the version of her in the anime is such a fun troll.
She is genuinely she is fully playing a part to get what she wants and to mess with people. I feel like she's just having a lot of fun.
I know she knows. Okay, she knows the crazy Yuki fangirls just hate her because she's the pretty girl that's like hanging out with him all the time, and she goes ham with it.
Oh my god, she doesn't just poke the bear with them. She goes after them with a sword. Like talking about me and you and ate those chocolates together. They were so yummy.
I love her.
She she just she just likes messing with everyone. And I have to admit I thoroughly enjoyed that she takes that seductress trope and just uses it in a completely unserious way.
Okay, I never had a funny seductress, but Kimi, she's a pioneer.
Yeah, she's a new one. All right. Now, how about we get into the
Yes.
meatier of the characters?
Maki and Kakeru. Which one do you want to talk first?
Let's get to Kakeru because Machi really continues in a particular way
Mm-hmm.
into season 3.
Yeah.
So, when we first meet Kakeru, he's
We saw him first in like
not
season one
at
towards the
all the
end.
person that you would pick. Well, yeah. But like when Yuki first meets him,
Mm-hmm.
he's not at all the kind of person you would pick to be on student council. I mean, he's certainly popular and good at making friends, but
Mm-hmm.
he's so all in with his emotions while being unaware of the effect that he has on other people and has no interest in responsibility as far as I can see.
The
You
only
know,
reason he
and it's
joined the
interesting
student
seeing the
council.
dynamic between him and Yuki. Like, doesn't he actually remind Yuki of Kyo in some ways?
I don't remember that scene, but I think so. He reminds Yuki of Kyo in the sense that people just approach him,
Yeah,
and it's very easy for him to make friends. Which I'm gonna say this out right now: the whole Yuki and Kyo envying each other is kind of BS.
say more.
Okay, Kyo admires that Yuki is very much admired in the family. He has a high regard in the family. He's a rat. He high up socially that way, and Yuki admires Kyo because it's very people just approach him, and he's like a magnet for people. It's very easy for him to make connections. But we very immediately found out that the only reason people don't swarm or approach Yuki that much is because of his fangirls. If the fangirls is not as aggressive as protecting Yuki, that envy might not even be there.
I don't know that I agree because
Hmm.
if we take the fangirls out of the equation, you still have Yuki's social anxiety. His feeling
Mhm.
like he doesn't know how to interact with people, even if they do approach him. Like early
Hmm.
on in the season, you see him walking away from like social interactions with Toru's friends because he just doesn't know how to engage. He's so used to being closed off.
Hmm.
So it's that Kyo has this ability to draw people to him and make real connections with
Hmm.
people.
Is
Whereas Yuki's has much more like superficial connections with anyone outside of the Sohma clan and yeah, even with the people within the Sohma clan because he was kept so isolated for much of his life. Like it's as much about perception as it is about reality with this
hmm.
jealousy
I think
because Yuki
so too.
feels unable to be socially active and socially competent. And
I
Kyo feels
wouldn't
like
even.
he's not accepted.
Well, he's not, and the thing is, Kyo also doesn't feel he's like socially. He's equipped socially as well in several ways. People approach him, but like I think he needs to learn how to interact with people as much as well, maybe less so than Yuki, but yeah.
The difference that I see is that when people approach Kyo, they don't put him on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
They approach him on equal footing. And
Mm-hmm.
so even when though he's awkward in the beginning and really kind of disastrous with being at the school at first, he's got these two guys who almost immediately latch onto him and decide that they're going to be his buddies despite him having protests and they start calling him Kyon Kyon.
Kyon Kichi, Kyon. And
Yeah, they just latch onto him.
but they're not really real friends. They don't really hang out outside of school.
True, but it's still a more grounded relationship than like people who see
Mhm.
Yuki and think, "Oh, it's you know, it's the Prince Yuki and he's so wonderful," and you know, it's the difference in Prince Yuki versus Kyonkichi. This teasing in school equal ground relationship versus
Mhm.
the pedestal
Mhm.
kind of status. And I
Yeah.
think neither of them really appreciate what they already have.
As opposed to Toru, who always appreciates everything.
Exactly.
I still think the jealousy is just like not as big. It's more perception than reality.
Well, sure, but that's a big part of jealousy, isn't it? You know, the grass is always greener.
So yeah, so Yuki joins the student council, and I'm assuming that the student council members are all as or slowly not as academically successful as Yuki, as part of the reason why they even qualify as members of the student council. And
You said that you think that they're all as educationally qualified as Yuki.
I think
Was
so
that
because that's what usually how students are selected for this group. Also, we
uh-huh.
learned from backgrounds from Kakeru and Machi that they are academically pressured by their families, their mothers
Right.
specifically, to be successful. It takes a special case for that to fall off ASAP.
That's true. Because, you know, Kakeru finally has his fit one day where he's like, I'm not going to go along with this anymore.
Mhm.
But the academic stuff may just be a force of habit by that point. But yeah, he starts out as such a almost antagonistic force to Yuki because they have different personalities. They're, you know, he's very direct, kind of has to be smacked over the head with something to get the message sometimes. Whereas
Mhm.
Yuki is all about control and subtlety.
Yeah, I think like the first time that Kakeru made fun of like Yuki's looks, Yuki was a bit bewildered of like, this guy's making fun of me. I'm like, how do
Yeah,
I respond? At that point, we don't enough know enough about Kakeru to realize, oh, it's light-hearted and not
right.
malicious in any way.
Yeah. In that moment, we're just like, oh. And it's very interesting for me to see the sometimes tumultuous friendship that they develop. Where like
Hmm.
Kakeru's still getting on Yuki's nerves all the time, but they're learning from each other, you know?
Yeah. When I was reading the manga and Kakeru was cleaning the student council and they were chatting with each other.
Mhm.
The first time that Yuki threw those papers in the air is like when I truly felt that Yuki is letting go.
Yeah, he was reaching a very distinct turning point at
Mm-hmm.
that moment. And you know, one thing that he is told repeatedly by different people
Mm-hmm.
that is something to be admired about him
Mm-hmm.
is his kindness and his sensitivity. You know, his older brother tells him so, Hatsuharu tells him so, and then Kakeru tells him that he's jealous of how he's just able to be aware of other people's emotions and of how he's affecting other people
Mm.
because
Kakeru has very
that's
little
not
care.
Kakeru's strong suit.
Like
He
when
has very little awareness.
well, I think he has tiny bit of awareness because later on in the series we start learning that like Kakeru knows that Yuki doesn't like to be called a girl, and he used that to wake him up during the school trip.
I remember that. I think that's part and parcel of him learning from time with Yuki though.
Hmm.
Like and that's more learning on an antagonistic level. You know, learning how you can annoy someone versus learning like how not to hurt people. with
Mhm.
your words and how to be considerate of people. And, you know, another big turning point is something I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
When Yuki Kakeru is the first person who he actually talks about his feelings about Tohru head on about. And that's when we find
Yes.
out this is not a romantic interest that Yuki has, that he views Tohru as a mothering figure.
Mhm. But can we
Now,
pause for a second and say that like the anime introduction songs and the anime intro sequences keep hammering on the love triangle.
yep,
And then all of a sudden we have this like multi-episode arc of Yuki explaining his feelings towards Tohru. Wait, okay, let's just say this. First of all, Kakeru observed that Yuki has a very close friendship with Tohru Honda. It was never explained in the anime as to why he seems antagonistic to Tohru Honda, but
mhm,
that's how the multi episode arc came about his emotions are towards Tohru.
right. So yeah, that's how it comes up. And like I said, I was team Yuki for a long while. So when this came along, I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed
Mm,
initially. I didn't take it as hard as I thought I would though, because I think by that point in the series, I had reached a point where it was more important to me that the various characters be happy. And usually in a love triangle situation, whoever doesn't get the girl is like the odd one out
mhm.
as far as their happiness. Now that's another trope that they break in Fruits Basket. Even so, I really had to force myself to just be like, all right, this is what they've done with the series. I can't do anything about it. So I guess I'll roll with it.
Yeah, I want to rewind a bit because like when I was watching this series, I kind verbally knew who's gonna end up with Toru, and I was for the longest time I felt like the series was setting up a Yuki and Toru relationship, and I was like, when one of the questions I have while rewatching the series is like, okay, I don't understand why Kyo is so attractive. One of the reasons why I want to rewatch this show is because like maybe watching the whole thing would make sense for me. And it kind of happened during the beach episodes when the crew through the generous heart of Momiji went to the beach house and started hanging out there for a little summer vacation. And Akito comes by and um, started summoning the other zodiacs, forcing Kyo and Toru to hang out with each other for a long time. This pattern continued on when Yuki started working with the student council, and that's less time spent with Toru again and more time spent between Kyo and Toru. That's when I started to realize, oh, he may have been like an emotional support early on, but they drifted apart naturally in the
Right.
story.
Yeah. I think it was handled in a way that made sense as far as why it wasn't Yuki for Toru
Mhm.
in the end. I think that the series also plays it out so that Kyo becomes a person who Toru can more and more go to for reassurance.
Mhm.
Like, he's the one who finds her up on the roof when she's mulling things over in season 2 and just like talks with her, is there with her. He's when she gets sick and she's all overwhelmed with anxiety about school stuff. He's still in his phase where he's very blushy, kind of tsundere-esque, but even though he can't even meet her eyes, he tells her, like, "It's okay to feel this way, to feel overwhelmed, and if you wanna talk about it, I'm here and I'll listen." You know, when she goes asking around about Kureno, it's not
Mhm.
Yuki she goes to, it's Kyo. There's stuff that you don't pick up on at first that helps develop their relationship, these little things, but it's those background things that are really necessary for filling in a believable romance.
Mhm. It's not who you admire the most, it's someone that you could rely on the most.
Mhm, exactly.
Okay.
So, the beach was a time in of itself.
Mhm. Animes always have the beach episodes, and they have this beach episode where
More of a beach
everybody,
arc, really.
yeah, the beach arc. Yeah, they just plan to have like a wonderful summer vacation, and Yuki helped out Toru with the homework beforehand because she totally neglected that.
And then Shigure and Akito throw a wrench in the works.
Again, this is one of the moments Akito showed her mean girlness.
I mean, it goes beyond that.
Yeah. Okay, Miyuki pointed this out that the reason why they're getting summoned every single day was because Akito want to show off the power she has over the zodiacs. Which, by the way, I don't care, curse or no curse. If the head of the family summons you, you go.
Yeah, like it makes sense why Akito the curse makes sense for why Akito would have this extra effect on them, for why, like, you know, a bad word from Akito is taken so much worse by the Zodiac members than a
Mhm,
bad word from anyone else. But even before I knew that Akito was the god figure
mhm.
in this, I was like, okay, yeah, Akito's the head of the family. I expect you just have to listen when they come calling.
Yeah, like no matter what, even if it's ridiculous, that's the head of the family. You're just like,
Right.
anyway. But yeah, it's this whole display was to show off the hold they have on, and Toru never even felt jealous one way or another. It was just like such a pathetic display.
You know, really Akito trying to exert this delusion that Akito has built up about being the god in this and all the Zodiac members being born,
Hmm.
you know, existing for her sake. I gotta say, also, the reveal that Akito was a woman was a complete anti reveal for me because I knew that from the start.
Okay, to be fair, the voice actor for the original were men. For the original series for Akita,
Oh, interesting.
it was much more apparent this time around because the voice actress is a woman, but it was
I
less.
mean, that's more realistic, honestly. A woman trying to act like a man would still have some semblance of sounding like, you know, an alto voiced woman or something like that. There's only so much you can disguise your voice. But yeah, you know, it was this whole show of, I mean, Akito showing her insecurity
Yeah,
by trying to exert this control and completely misunderstanding Toru's role
yeah.
and
She
Toru's desires.
at some point they realized that Kyo was with her the entire time, and Akito decides to make a show of like summoning him willy nilly, and Toru's reaction is pure joy.
Right. She's like, "Oh my god, this is something Kyo wanted. This is so great."
It's
It's
kind
like,
of
well,
funny. It's kind of sad at the same time.
it's like, well, you know, Akito, you're not being real effective against Toru with this show. You're sure traumatizing all the Zodiac members all over again. But then it finally comes to a head when she goes to see Tohru in person.
And Momiji showing his maturity, saying
Oh my
no.
god. He's the first person who says no to Akito.
It's not just that. He was just telling her like, no, you're just trying to start trouble. This is not cool. It's not okay. You should turn around. And I'm just like, thank you, Momiji. I'm just like,
It was more subtle than that, though. It was, like, more emotionally nuanced. Like, "Akito, I see that you're upset, and if I go and get Toru, I'm afraid you're gonna take it out on her, so tell me what's wrong. Like, talk to me." You know, it was this attempt to handle Akito gently, and it backfired, but it was very brave nonetheless. You know, God, I still get struck by the I'm of course, by Akito hitting Momiji, but then what's somehow more striking for me is the absolute horror on Momiji's face when Akito hurts Toru. When she scratches her cheek, he looks just absolutely traumatized, like this is the worst thing that could ever happen.
I was too busy being traumatized to notice his reaction. I'm just like, dude, those are gashes that she
Right?
just scratched on Toru. I'm just like, jeez, does she strap in her claws?
That was such a tense scene. And the interesting nuance in Hatsuharu sending Momiji out to take care of it, because Momiji would be an incentive for the older Zodiac members to step in. That was an interesting moment of strategy on Haru's part.
Hmm.
And, you know, with the end of this meeting, Toru gets a new determination in the wake of these hard truths about the curse, about Kyo's going to be locked up at the end of school, and about this confinement that's going to
Hmm.
happen to the Zodiac members. So
Hmm.
her spark is sure ignited as
Hmm.
far as wanting to end the curse.
Yeah, it was interesting because like you mentioned that that spark happened at that moment, but in my head, since I watched the original series, I felt like the spark happened much early on. When I was watching it early on, there's this sense of like, oh, the curse is going to break eventually, and Toru would help instigate that. And we could talk about that later, but like in this adaptation, the spark happened later on in the beach episodes.
Yeah. I think she has, from very early on, a desire to help the Somas and to
Mm-hmm.
help them grow, but she doesn't have a real awareness of the curse and of what's going to happen to them if the curse
Mm-hmm.
isn't broken until Akito comes right out with it
Mm-hmm.
in that beach episode. She becomes actively involved in trying to break the curse
Mm.
after that.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, we've got the school play. It's Cinderella-ish.
It's Cinderella-ish. Lighter note, pivot. Let's go to Cinderella-ish. Okay, it's Cinderella-ish is like the purely comedic part of the series, and it's such a relief out of all the deep of the more traumatic stuff. And this
Mhm.
is the same humor that I remember from the original series.
It's I mean, Hana is the last person you would cast as a traditional Cinderella.
So that's why it's ish.
I mean, every single character, every single casting choice is unconventional.
It makes sense. It's like, oh, Yuki's too busy for the student council, so he doesn't want to be the
The
prince.
moment he comes down as a fairy godmother, though,
Oh my gosh, it does not help with his complex about his face.
oh my god, everyone's just like, "He's so beautiful!"
Okay, okay, the changes they made just so that it fits into these people's character, and I love the inclusion of the narrator just to make sure that the story gets along. The
Right.
stepsister and Cinderella are now best friends because they're played by the stepsister is played by
Best friend.
Tohru. The Cinderella is played by Hana, so they have to be best friends now because they can't separate them. When Yuki came by and asked if he could fulfill one of
Her
Cinderella's wish,
wish.
and it's always food related.
Until he finally has to be like, to go to the ball, all right.
And the narrator's like, thanks to the fairy godparents' adhesion to the story.
Yeah. There's some excellent fourth wall breaking.
Cinderella-ish, alright.
But then even within that play, we get some interesting romance moments. You know, Tohru can't control herself from an outburst when Kyo's monologue hits a little too close to home with the whole cat being locked up deal. And then you have Uotani losing
Beating
face
up Kyo.
completely.
Like, she makes excellent points. It's like, there are a lot of people in this world who want to see people they love but can't. And you have that person right in front of you and you ignore them. And I'm like, yes, Uotani, tell us more.
Yes, unload your baggage, please.
Momiji again here is the hero later on.
Yes. Oh my god. Him and Tohru just like banding together to try and get Uotani and Kureno together is kind of adorable.
We circle
Speaking
back
of
to
Kureno, what do you think of him?
Kureno. I think other than that weird connection he has with Uotani after 2 meetings, I still think it's kind of weird. Okay. Side note, I wouldn't find it that weird if they were around the same age. But since the age gap is there, I'm just like, alarm bells.
Mhm.
Tohru is just like trying to establish connection between the two of them and making sure that that at the very least they're connected in some way. He's kind of a mysterious guy. He's kind of like reserved, and even as everybody points out, even within the zodiac, he's kind of reserved and protected.
Yeah. By the end of the season though, we get more insight into his character and his place within the zodiac. We get some major information
Yes, and
at
that
the end of the
information
series.
is, say it, Goldie.
Kureno's curse has already broken, all on its own. He doesn't know how.
I'm like, I'm like bewildered by that. And okay, I heard about his curse breaking before I rewatched it, and part of me for a while was kind of upset that like, oh, Tohru didn't contribute to any of that. But now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, I'm happy that Tohru didn't contribute to that.
Hmm. Yeah?
Yeah, because like for the longest time, Tohru Honda has always been like this mystical female that's supposed to come in and save everybody. But I'm kind
Right.
of happy that like it ended up like, oh, the very first time the curse breaks, Tohru
Has
wasn't
nothing to
there
do
to
with
be the
her.
fist. It has nothing to do with her. She's not the mystical female.
Yeah. I think it's good that they're not making Tohru like the savior
Hmm.
for this whole thread. She's been a lifeline for much of the Sohma clan and a
Hmm.
positive influence, but she's not the be all end all.
Hmm.
And I think having Kureno's curse end, a long time ago, actually,
Hmm.
before Tohru was even in the picture,
Hmm. Like a decade before.
is a good way to uncouple that.
Hmm.
You know, in the process of that revelation, we find out how Kureno is yet another of those exceedingly giving and forgiving types of people, and that's why he can't pursue anything with Uotani because
I'm
he's
happy.
promised to stay. I mean, I am happy that he's not that he didn't jump into something with her, but there is also the fact that his relationship with Akito was hollow and toxic.
Yeah. Okay.
That it was purely him staying to try and comfort her,
Okay.
and she just gets worse and worse.
Okay. I am making a metaphorical break here because we are reaching season 3. This is a part where I'm transitioning to season 3, and I would like to discuss more about Kureno and Akito's relationship. And I think that it's com it's complex in the sense that Kureno views wants to take care of Akito a
Right.
lot, and I feel like Akito wants to have a hold on Kureno as a former Zodiac, hold him close. Oh, wait, so the way I feel that Akito wants to keep Kureno close was through. That's just what I think.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, Akito seems, we see the moment that Kureno's curse breaks, and Akito is so panicked and terrified of Kureno leaving her.
Hmm. And to be fair, she was a kid at that time, so anybody leaving is panic inducing to anybody that age.
True, true. And that's an unraveling of Akito that we can get into more. Is it okay if I delve into that a little bit?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, in season 3, we finally start to get some of Akito's background. We find out that there's a reason that she has clung to this god complex, this delusion of the bond between the god and the zodiac animals being this sacred bond, being that it's a good thing. She holds on to it because, funny enough, she seems to have a similar fear of abandonment that Rin does.
Yeah, we're talking about Rin, the Zodiac member. Okay. We should also
Yeah.
talk about Ren. I
Oh
propose
boy,
at this point we stop calling Rin Rin and start calling her Isuzu, which is her actual name.
it'll get too confusing otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. So we found out that Akito was born to the previous head of the family, and her mother is Ren, who is very much against the zodiac.
And also very much mentally unstable and toxic.
Yeah. Okay. The entire time I was watching Ren, I'm like, why aren't you sending her to Europe? Somewhere far away. You guys are rich enough. You guys have your own hospital. You guys are rich enough to like send her away and keep her away. Why is she still there?
I don't know. I mean, I think some part of it is probably that as much as Akito hates Ren, Ren is still a Soma
Hmm.
and the wife of the previous head. So there's that, and then there's also a certain like maybe Akito considered that giving her any freedom would be too much of a good thing for her.
But
Hence
she's
why she's kept so
torturing
confined.
herself. She's torturing herself as a result. Jesus Christ.
I mean, she's torturing herself in a lot of ways. This is just one of many. I'm still ugh, cringing over the whole sequence of events because Akito's dad, Akira,
Hmm.
was sickly. He
Hmm.
knew he was going to die young.
Hmm.
And even when he and Ren met, it struck me as a toxic love because it was okay, Ren's the one who actually listened to him and had compassion for him. But she approaches him and tells him, "Let me take every last bit of your loneliness and your sorrow and your pain. Let me carry it all for you."
I think it's a case where you're just so hurting that you're just very eager to unload, no, and has no room to think about how toxic this is.
Yeah, it was definitely a love of circumstance that would otherwise have been recognized as an unhealthy relationship. But
Mhm.
it happened, and then Akira passed away, and Ren had no love for this child who she was left with.
I want to talk about the head maid for a bit.
Oh, she's a piece of work.
Yeah, the head maid comes across as someone who is very rigid in her worldview and the type of person who would enforce social hierarchy at all
Yes,
costs.
absolutely. She's in that way, she's also very much responsible for reinforcing Akito's god complex.
Yeah, I think part of her hatred, well, her hatred towards Ren, which is reflected on Akito, is that Ren used to be the maid and
Right.
rose above her station by marrying the head of the family. And I think the maid resented that, which got transferred to Akito. That's just my head canon. But I'm still of the opinion that they should have given Ren a bunch of money and sent her to Europe.
Well, that wasn't the case, and
Hmm.
they had to deal with her being around. I wanna talk about Shigure and Ren,
Okay.
because I am really honestly rather concerned about Shigure and Akito's relationship.
Hmm.
They have this thing from childhood where Shigure is the one who really swears that he loves her
Hmm.
and who does seem to have this genuine affection for her. Then Akito takes Kureno as a lover because she seems to think that, you know, she doesn't seem to think that Shigure still feels those things for her. And Shigure responds by sleeping with her mother.
They're so messed up. Okay. Shiguro made this very nice line that he said that like, oh, all of the older zodiacs would are angling to be her father figure, but yet Shigure is the one who slept with her mother.
Yeah.
I'm like, boy.
Like, even if you're jealous, even if you want this person, possibly this is one of the more twisted responses I can think of. Like, and Shigure really does start to show his dark side.
There were hints about it. I'm like, there were. He is portrayed as a little bit sneakier this
Right,
time
as
around.
as devious.
Yeah.
Stuff really comes out in season 3.
Oh, I okay. This is jumping it a bit, but like that line that Shigure said that Kyo's purpose is to be the monster so that all the other zodiacs could feel better about themselves. I'm like, he's right, but damn, dude.
Right. Yeah, that is a thing about Shigure that becomes characteristic and clear about his personality during season 3, that he does not shy away from blunt, messed up truths, that he'll say the things other people feel indecent saying,
Hmm.
and he doesn't have a problem with it. Like, his morality compass just doesn't seem to be the same as everyone else's.
Mm.
And I'm still really creeped out by sleeping and even in a later episode when Ren's trying to man probably to get something she wants. He gives her this line like, "Yes, it's true. I do have some affection for you. It's because you look like what I imagine Akito would have looked like if she was allowed to be a girl and to grow into a woman." And I was just like, ugh. Like it's a blistering line that is designed to hit Ren where it will piss her off the most by saying, "I'm the only thing that I find attractive about you is seeing Akito in you." But it's still just like, "Shigure, ew."
Okay, I understand he did that to make the biggest impact, but well, I don't know if Shigure ever considered himself a monster, but that's pretty up there.
He knows that he is not a good person. I think that beyond that though, he doesn't consider his own morality much. He is largely a very selfish person
Hmm.
who occasionally has pangs of morality or of even it could even be argued even selfishly caring about people who are precious to him because it's like they're his. Toru manages to guilt him into some good behavior by being so stinking pure and nice and obliging all the time, making him feel the slightest bit bad for being the way he is,
Okay.
but it doesn't change his behavior.
Okay. Let's roll back and talk about Isuzu for a bit.
Yes. Oh, poor Suzu. She's so desperate at this point to find a solution.
To break the curse. I think she is the zodiac member that is really, really actively looking for ways to break the curse. Shigure pointed out that everybody else is dismayed about the curse, but Isuzu is the one who is really going hard looking for a solution to the
An
point that
answer.
she made a devil's bargain essentially with
With
Ren.
Ren tried to steal the jar that supposedly had Akira's soul in it, Akito's father's soul in it. And Akito catches her and locks her up and cuts
In
her
the
hair
cat
too.
Yeah. Okay. I started realizing this, but like Isuzu and Ren have very similar appearances. They both have
Yep,
long dark hair. And it doesn't help that Isuzu's nickname is Ren, and it
right.
sounds very similar to Ren.
Yeah, they both have a certain grace and they look very similar. So that's definitely part of the dislike that Akito has for Rin.
Hmm.
For Suzu, that
Hmm.
she resembles Akito's mother. And I wonder if the cutting her hair is like an attempt to take some of that semblance away subconsciously to like destroy
Hmm.
that beauty, because that in her mind it's probably that same beauty that seduced Shigure.
Yeah, I think that's part of the hatred towards them. And the story goes on. Isuzu is trapped at the cat's house.
Right.
Of all the places, it's the cat's house that she got trapped into.
Which has such a
And
bad reputation.
she was left without food or anything. This was stopped by Kureno, who
He really made a distinctive choice
mhm,
by going against Akito in that moment,
mhm.
because he chose morality over his loyalty to Akito.
I want to
Yeah?
replay back to the note of capture because like I didn't get a chance to talk about it before because like this. Okay, this is not related to this scenario, but I find it very interesting that the threat about Kyo, the worry about Kyo is that he will get trapped at the cat's house, and we later found out that Yuki was kind of trapped in Akito's room for a while. It was
Mhm.
only hinted like, oh, maybe Akito bullied Yuki very harshly, but no, he was trapped.
Right. That's an interesting parallel. I hadn't caught that before. But yeah, I think that lines up with um, Yuki and Kyo being a lot more similar in experience and in their life experience than they realized. It's something that the audience gets to see, but they don't really get to see until the end.
So yeah, Kureno stops the craziness, summons Haru, who is just like
Oh,
incensed about it.
he oh my god. I am not a person who promotes violence, but there was something deeply satisfying about seeing him manhandle Akito,
I know.
about
And
finally seeing her smug composure break.
and the gaslighting Akito attempted.
Right.
Hatsuharu pointed this out. He pointed out that Akito always hated the girls more than the guys.
Right.
I don't know, it's like self-imposed misogyny or something, but it just says to the extreme version of mean girlness that Akito already displayed before.
I think that hatred of the women in the zodiac, I can see two potential sources. There's,
Mhm,
as we've discussed, her mother, who she hates, who is very feminine and very capable of using her feminine charms for
mhm,
seduction.
mhm.
And there is also the fact that Akito did not choose to live life as a boy. That was her mother's choice. She was denied that. And so I think that this hatred of the women of Zodiac is as much fueled by resentment that they get to be that, they get to have that, and that they have that feminine charm that can in her mind, take away the male members of the Zodiac from her.
I think I mentioned it before that I feel like Akito is using her sexuality to keep Kureno nearby. And it feels like Akito is not disgusted enough of that notion to not use it herself.
No, it's not disgust that's operating in this situation, I think. It's jealousy and resentment.
Entitlement is what I think half the time I see.
Yes, that too. A lot of entitlement that's been instilled in her by by the messages that her father gave her
The
before
fact
he
of the
died,
curse.
by the curse itself, by the head servant reinforcing this idea as well.
Mhm.
And for me, it was morbidly fascinating seeing Akito unravel in season 3 as more and more of the curse broke member by
Mhm.
member,
Mhm.
because we see more and more of Akito as there's this entitlement, and she's an abuser, and there's all this ugliness, but then we also see her as this terrified child who,
I
even
think
as a 20-year-old, she's still like almost has the mindset of a child with what comes with that is that entitlement, that lack of boundaries.
Mhm.
That sense of, like, she's so terrified of loneliness, and she has been told so much from the beginning that she is entitled to these people and that she is supposed to always be loved, that she just clings to that and twists it into something ugly and violent.
I know. I feel I think Akito never learned, never developed, and never had a chance to develop. I think that's how the curse affected her. That she never had to grow up. She was never allowed to grow up. Was never allowed to move on beyond the phase where everybody adores her.
Right. I remember there's this, I forget which episode it's in, but there is an episode where we see, I think it's actually the episode, where she crosses paths with Tohru once again, where it's pointed out to us as an audience that
Hmm.
Akito gets put on this pedestal as a god, and being on a pedestal is a loneliness and isolation all its own because she leads the zodiac and she is in control of them, but she is not one of them. So
Yeah,
she's, she's trying to always pull them closer and to control them without ever being part of that inner circle in the first place. The
yeah.
zodiac members are, they're traumatized in different ways, but they've all gotten to grow up to some extent.
Hmm.
And that's something that Akito never got.
This is very similar to the treatment that Yuki had as the prince.
Yep,
Hmm.
it sure is. Whereas Yuki at least had some normal school environment around him.
Hmm.
Akito had nothing but that worship.
I don't even know whether or not she had a schooling.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't have been surprised if it was like private tutors kind of deal. I don't think Akito has ever gone to a school with other classmates.
Yeah.
I don't think that she ever had that social interaction.
Okay, so let's start about the curse breaking one by one. First, it was Kureno from a decade ago. We don't know what caused it, but it just happened and it was a devastating moment. Then we have Momiji.
Okay,
It
can we talk about Momiji for a second in season
Yes,
3?
yes. Momiji,
Can we
our
talk about
love.
Momiji growing up? He gets taller and he pretty much stays the same on the inside.
Hmm.
I remember seeing that more grown up, like, teenager version of Momiji in the opening during the opening song and being genuinely confused, like, who is this guy? And eventually I recognized him, but I was like, "Oh my god."
That's one heck of a growth spurt.
I know.
Like okay, I noticed that like everybody else is surprised by his growth spurt except for Tohru, which I guess is because they see each other frequently during her job. But yeah,
Yep.
and we it's a very interesting occasion, and Momiji was very much happy with his change of appearance because somebody special is finally going to see him as a man, specifically Tohru. And I'm just like, I was taken aback.
I was totally blindsided by that.
But it makes so much sense though. Like
It
Tohru,
does. They set Toru up to be such a precious person to Momiji, and he is always demonstrating what he will do for her. When he when he stands up to Akito for her, when when she comes to the estate looking for Kureno, he he insists on coming with her, even though he's not supposed to see Kureno. And when she refuses, he gives her a map and tells him, tells her, if you get caught, blame it on me, blame everything on me. And then he follows her when she leaves.
Not just that, he was just always eager to take her somewhere, the bathhouse, the lake, like not the lake house, but the beach. He's always down on treating her. And I think we were blindsided by that because of his very cute appearance initially.
Exactly.
And now that he's older, imagine if like that's how he looked when he did all that.
It would have been much different.
Yeah.
And
And
who knows if Tohru would have felt anything for him. But it would certainly have felt different for us as an audience.
I know. It's just it makes sense also because from the very beginning, Tohru has always accepted the zodiacs, and his complex was that his mother didn't accept
Right.
zodiacs.
So he just it's complete acceptance from her. And he has this thing of racing up to hug her almost as soon as as they know each other. He
Mm-hmm.
has no problem with transforming in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
He does it in the back of her classroom, for Christ's sake.
Oh my gosh. It's like imagine how this series will be if Momiji did all that all while looking like that.
Oh my god. I I mean, I have to say I was a little his curse breaking was really a very bittersweet thing for me
Mm.
because I loved that he was free, but he has this little conversation with Kyo about he knows crystal clear how Kyo feels about Toru,
Mm-hmm.
but he talks about how he has these feelings too and how his curse is broken now, but he's not the one who that really matters. Like not in the same way for Toru. Even with
Mm-hmm.
his curse broken, he's not going to be with her because he knows that she's in love with Kyo, and that stings for him. And then we have him interacting with his mom and having to keep up this thing of them not knowing each other and
Which
being strangers.
yes, I'm like the curse is broken. Reconnect. At least have a relationship with the sister who is just like also wants to connect.
I know. I was like, his plan seemed to be that he was going ahead in life without any of his family.
Ah, that's bullshit.
And I want him, like little Momo even says, as tell Momiji I want him to be my big brother.
Okay, Momiji should talk to his father and try to be like this adopted cousin or something. Just do it and have a relationship with Momo.
Yeah, just like freaking adopt Momiji and let them be a family. But, we see Momiji's curse breaking, and it's Hatsuharu after that, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's the sheep.
Oh, right.
Hero, I think.
Those are quieter. And I think it's actually or is it Kisa even before Hiro?
No, it's
No, 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 it's
Hero.
Hiro. It's Hiro. Then I don't remember if Hatsuharu or Kisa comes next, but it's
I think it was
something like
Hero then
that
all of them at
sequence.
once. It's Hero then all of them at once. Um, I think Heroes is interesting because there was they had a conversation, Hero and Kisa, about one of them now is no longer a zodiac, and that poses a problem in their relationship. Hiro is happy because he could finally hold his little sister, but I think Hiro was concerned that he was free and Kisa is not. And
Mhm.
when Hiro asked about it, Kisa replied, "No, I was worried about you because I'm still part of this group and you're no longer."
Right, like, she's worried about him being isolated, and
Mhm,
that's when the whole story about her getting hurt because of what
mhm,
he told Akito comes out,
mhm. It's
and
always it's Akito's prejudice against the women.
yep. I think that, I mean, the moment when things really come to a head is Akito is continuing to feel these connections breaking, and Kureno tries to reach her with, like, she reaches a point where she's like, I think she starts to realize how much damage she's caused, and she's just, I mean, about time, right?
Well,
But
she did a rampage before that happened. She went on a rampage.
well, okay, she goes on, but even before that,
Yeah.
like the moment when, Kureno's hugging her as she's basically falling apart. She's asking, like, when did my life kind of go so wrong? When did it get so messed up? And Kureno tries to step in with, like, we can start again. We can make we can make things better. And in Akito's eyes, it's far too late for that. So that's when she snaps. I was really worried that we were gonna lose Kureno.
I know. The thing is that like Kureno mentioned about how crazy Ren is, and in my head I'm like, Akito's crazier.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, quite frankly, she's been loaded down with a lot more trauma than Ren,
Yeah, but still.
and she's no, that's not me excusing her. That's
Mhm.
that's just me finding a cause to it. She took
Yeah.
that abuse and then she made bad choices with it, and she made it into something horrible, and she became a horrible person, a much worse person than her mother because of it.
Mm. Anyway,
But she has this turning point, where she finally connects with Tohru.
after stabbing her,
Yeah, I was watching that interaction where Tohru keeps trying to get close and she keeps slashing at her with a knife, and I was like, this is so typical Tohru to keep trying, even with a person who is, like, physically maiming her.
I'm just like, girl, you're still she is stabbing you and you're still approaching the danger. I'm just like, Toru, why? Why are you doing this to yourself?
It's it's so quintessentially Toru, though, to not back down from trying to help someone no matter what. And I want to hear your opinion about the moment when Akito kind of makes this switch on her perception of Toru, because they have this moment of connection where Toru is she gains more of an understanding of Akito because she actually finds some similarities between her and Akito.
Um,
And she extends her hand,
this is the part where
and
I'm very, very, very happy I watched the dubbed instead of the subbed because the switch was so dumb abrupt. I could just like blow it away. I'm just like, this this is like a Jux Ex Machina kind of thing. It happens so quickly. I'm just like, I can dismiss this. I'm not gonna psychologize it. I'm just gonna accept it. Suspension of disbelief.
How funny. I expected you to be like ripping it apart, if I'm honest.
Mentally I am ripping it apart because this is so ridiculous. But I'm just like, you know what? I'm accepting this. I'm moving on. I am watching the dub, not the sub. I am just like, whatever cultural context that is, it's anime cultural context. I'm letting go of my anger.
Yeah, I suppose so. That scene turns from murderously dramatic to disastrously dramatic when
Because
when the heavy rain crumbles the cliff under Toru's feet.
a mudslide happened.
And we've previously had a very difficult conversation with Kyo,
Mhm.
where Toru is confessing all but confessing her love. And he's just emotion dumping on her, revelation dumping on her. And that's
Okay,
a whole other thing.
let's just divorce this for a second because I have things to say about Akito and Tohru.
I knew it.
Okay. While during the conversation, Tohru might mention that she doesn't see herself as perfect. Akito was like kind of bad that she is viewed as this monster which is reflected in the way we discuss about these characters. Akito is the monster while Tohru is Little Miss Perfect, but Tohru kind of revealed that something very poignant, that she doesn't see herself as a Little Miss Perfect because she is actively trying to destroy the future Akito prepared for.
Right. That's a very, I think, emotionally mature example of stepping into someone else's shoes
Mhm.
because, like, yes, Akito is an abuser.
Mhm.
Yes, she's done so many terrible things.
Mhm.
But here is Toru looking at the situation from Akito's point of view
Mhm.
of like, this is what I expect from the future. This is my stability and my, like, the things I want, the things I hold precious.
Mhm.
However, whether it's right or wrong, this is what I perceive. And from that side of the conversation, Toru's trying to take away everything that Akito holds dear.
So yeah, honestly, Akito is still worse.
Of course she is. She has so much that she can't ever make up for.
Mhm. And we mentioned it before. Isuzu asked, "Why are we just forgiving her after everything she's done?" And I'm like, "Thank you, Isuzu. Thank you."
I think it's not necessarily, I think that the reactions vary between the Zodiac characters. I think a lot of them have not necessarily forgiven her so much as just are trying to move forward
Mhm.
without putting more ill will into the conversation.
Mhm.
A lot of them are just putting Akito behind them. You have Momiji interacting with her outside of the hospital
Mhm.
and not not exactly being welcoming, but giving Akito something of a learning opportunity by
Mhm.
telling her the story of the idiotic traveler.
Mhm.
I mean, he's essentially giving her an opportunity to grow in that moment, which is a lot more charity than anyone would expect of him.
Yeah.
And Yuki has a pivotal moment of moving on from it where he's at the Zodiac banquet,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
Akito's gaslighting him, telling him, I forgive you for not attending the banquet last year. and he tells her, "I've I've decided to forgive you too."
Oh my gosh, I'm like face palming right now because like I think it's just that scenario also demonstrates how entitled Akito is. I don't know exactly, but we are hinted that it reminds her of the part where
Where Kureno
Kureno
was, yeah,
freed
lost
from.
his bond.
I don't know. There's something part of her just like panic that, oh wow, this might break something, and she just went off. I don't know. I also part of me feels like she doesn't want to owe anybody an apology, no matter how badly she behaves, and that to me is entitlement.
Entitlement is certainly part of the equation. Are you talking about before or after she makes her big decision to change things?
It was before, like during that
Mhm.
time with Yuki, when Yuki was telling her, "Oh, I forgive you." I think part of her just doesn't want to be forgiven because she doesn't want to have to be forgiven.
Yeah, I think it's equal parts fear and entitlement there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, she gets some major grace in the aftermath of her rampage with Tohru and Kureno both choosing to forgive her and extend kindness to her. It's arguably more than she deserves, but it's astounding either way.
Okay, in the dub, when they were talking with each other, Momiji mentioned that like, oh, idiots have their uses. Thanks to those idiots, you don't have to face to your crimes. And the word crime points things into perspective because yeah, the way Momiji pointed out, yeah, Akito needs to be arrested for stabbing all these people, and like
Multiple things.
yeah, she needs to be arrested for imprisoning Isuzu and like planning to imprison Kyo, and I'm just like, damn, yeah, Momiji put things in perspective right there.
Yeah, it's interesting how Momiji is the one to really deliver that cold line to her, you know, and he says something that I think is a concept that Akito never learned, the concept of reciprocity, of earning someone's love, or
Mm-hmm,
of, you know, doing things to deserve someone's love. So when she's just bewildered by Kureno and Toru's willingness to
mm-hmm,
still be kind to her, he tells her like, you cherish them.
mm-hmm.
That's how you handle that. And it's like she has to learn to create different kinds of relationships with people, which was something that wasn't even in her worldview ever. She was never taught anything about that.
I think this goes back to that episode with Kisa on the first season and Yuki, when Yuki pointed out that there has to be someone who loves you unconditionally in order for you to have the strength to go out in the world.
Mhm.
And Akito's mom, being who she is, never had that solid ground. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not
Yeah.
here. Let's not diagnose this person, this character. This is a fictional character.
I would like to talk about
Hmm.
Kyo and Tohru,
Yes, Kyo and Tohru. What do you want to talk about?
because what's sticking in my mind is the moment when Akito comes running, freaking out about Tohru falling off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kyo's not there right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's Yuki who flips out and starts making preparations, like, you know, call an ambulance, like let's go out and find her kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then the moment Kyo hears Tohru fell off a cliff. He's off. And he finds her, and it's like, it's his worst nightmare come true. He has this whole history with Tohru's mom that gets revealed about being a little kid who found some support in Kyoko. And then, yeah, I can see you have stuff to say on that subject, so jump in.
Okay, so this is, let's acknowledge that even the characters acknowledge that Kyo and Kyoko are very similar names.
Yes.
And yeah, it was like kind of interesting. That's how they started talking with each other. It was kind of a surprise that they kind of knew each other before we learned this secret past that Kyo actually
That
tries
Kyo
to hide.
has.
Kyo hides it more than Kyoko because it's not really a big deal to her,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, it's just a little kid who keeps her company from time to time. And not only did he have that past with her, he was there when she had her accident. The accident that killed her. And there's this thing that's been echoing in his head for all these years that he's suppressed of her last words, "I won't forgive you."
Yeah, and Tohru is
Which
very
must
much...
have been, yeah, she's very much like, nah,
That's not what
she
she meant.
didn't. That's not it.
And
But
within
like,
context, that's not what she meant.
right. That was just the only words she was able to get out.
Mhm.
But Kyo has been walking around all this time with that on his conscience. And it's echoing all the stuff he's been told about it being his fault that his mother committed suicide.
Oh my gosh. This is such a lot to unpack. We haven't even gotten the part with the whole hat thing.
Oh, the hat. That was such a twisty thing because it was like, okay, it's definitely one of the two. It's definitely Yuki or Kyo who have had this hat. And then we find out, okay, it was Yuki who had the hat. And then we find out, oh, it was originally Kyo's hat. It was something that his master got him. But no, we find out that the hat was originally Kyo's. And so the fact that Tohru still has it, it's this link for her to both of the boys, but it's also a reminder to Kyo of this promise that he made to keep Tohru safe. Then fast forward a little bit, and Tohru's mom is dead. Fast forward to that night on the cliff when the mudslide happens. And, Kyo has been pulling away from Tohru because he is trying to keep her safe and he doesn't think that he's worthy of her. And suddenly all his nightmares about it being Tohru who is lying bleeding in the street come true. And God, the look on his face. I was equal parts like, oh God, you poor boy, and yeah, you shouldn't have pushed her away to begin with. Miraculously, she ends up being okay.
Okay.
But
I just thought about this, but like, she could have died on a mudslide the first episode of this series.
Right.
And now she slipped on a mudslide towards the end, and it's a full circle moment.
That's
a
wonderful full circle moment, actually. This goes back to the whole Yuki Kyo supposed love triangle and us being
that
Team
never
Yuki
actually
for a while. Because I grew to actually be happy with the Tohru and Kyo option, and also to really love where they were taking Yuki's story as far as romance. Because Tohru was a source of strength for him, and he grew so much throughout the series.
Mhm.
And so when this thing started with him and Machi, it was wonderful it was another kind of full circle moment for him, where he becomes the one who can be strong for someone, who can help someone.
Bachi, we learned two things about her. One was that, what's his name? Okay, her
Kakeru.
and Kakeru were actually siblings. And two, Amachi hates it when everything is a little too perfect.
Right. It goes back to her mother's perfectionistic tendencies and all this
Mm.
pressure she had to be perfect.
And she just want to mess things up. And that moment when Yuki just breaks a piece of chalk,
So
just
that she
so it,
can be comfortable.
and I'm just like, that is one of the most romantic thing ever. It's small, it's intimate, it requires knowledge of the other person.
Yeah. It just works out really beautifully. They are such a good fit too, because even before all of his growing, Yuki was he was kind and he was very sensitive to others.
Mm-hmm.
So that mentality combined with Machi's more taciturn personality
Mm-hmm.
is so important for their interactions, because Yuki's able to read her much more readily than other people can.
And Machi, in turn, was able to read him as well.
Mhm.
They pointed this out. Part of the reason why Machi is so special compared to the other girls who wants to vie for Yuki's attention was that Machi doesn't see him as a prince. Tohru sees him, even
Right.
Tohru sees him as a prince. All of Tohru's friends sees him as a prince, but Machi could sense that he was lonely, and she didn't try to fix it. She just observed it and realized, oh, he's making active changes, and that's something I admire.
Mhm. And she has these attempts to reach out at a certain point that are clumsy because she's not used to doing that, but they're so endearing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she calls him out of the blue,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out that she has a like a get well gift for Tohru, which
Mm-hmm.
is like sweet on its own, because Tohru doesn't know her. She doesn't know Tohru, but she's still being thoughtful like this.
It still
And
bewilders me. Like, why would Machi give Yuki the gift for Tohru? I'm like, I know they're close, but do they know that they were living together?
I mean, she's observant. I think that she knows what Tohru means to Yuki on
Mm-hmm.
some level.
Mm-hmm.
Even barring the possibility that she knows about the whole mother relationship, it's just clear that they're very dear to each other. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so it'd be weird coming from me, but coming from you, it'll be a little more
Mm-hmm.
passing it on from someone who's wishing you well. So that was a nice way to continue Yuki's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Toru's reaction to Kyo when she gets out of the hospital is not what I expected. She hightails it in the opposite direction.
Oh my gosh. She's just like, nope, 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 nope. I'm out.
And she doesn't even know why she's doing it. This was not even what she was preparing herself to do. She was preparing herself to try and accept the fact that he didn't love her. The fact, the impression that she got, and to do her best to just be his friend and be in his life still.
Yeah. I think this mirrors the last episode of season 1 when Toru ran after Kyo. For some reason,
Mhm.
it's very different in a sense because Toru doesn't understand her own emotions. She can't figure out why exactly she's running. But we should note that this is an instance of her being selfish without, despite everything she tries to push herself to do.
It is. And that's part of the reason that this is her being in love with him, not out of, it's there's no pity or charity involved here. This is something she wants.
To run away from the guy.
Because she thinks that she can't have what she wants from him.
Still funny though that she ran away.
It's hilarious. And it's like insult to injury when that, what was it? It's like a little kid and his mom or something walk by Kyo and they go, he got dumped, didn't he? He got dumped. And Kyo's like, okay. But it's, like you said, it's a parallel of Tohru chasing after Kyo. He's persistent. He doesn't give up when she tries to shake him. One thing that stuck out to me about Kyo and Tohru's relationship, even before all this I love you business, is that he gets comfortable with her emotions and with her tears. Like she can cry all she wants around him, and very rarely will he freak out. Unless it's just very unexpected. And then he's like, oh crap, how can I fix this? He's there to hold space for her emotions, which is big growth on his part from the dude who could not handle any emotion. And like a perfect poetic bit of anime, his curse breaks
in that moment
during the
along with all the other curse breaks. Okay, I noticed this back when Momiji's curse breaks. It breaks while Akito was sleeping and remembering her father.
Right.
And this time, the entire curse breaks as an active decision on Akito's part.
I want to go against that a little bit because I don't think Akito's controlling the curse. She's just allowing it to happen. She's accepting it. And of course, she also makes the decision to, well, we'll get to that in a minute. It's a much more voluntary thing on her part when the rest of the curse breaks. I admit to mixed feelings about the curse breaking all on its own. Because Shigure's impression of what he's trying to achieve seems to shift throughout the series. Season 1, we get hints that he is using people to get something that he wants. In season 2, it seems like he wants the curse to be broken. And then in season 3, it's revealed that he's had this theory for a long time that the curse is going to break all on its own, that this is going to be the last of the Zodiac curse because all of the members of the Zodiac are alive at the same time, alive and together, that signals the end. So
the final banquet.
Yeah. I was kind of like, what was Isuzu and Tohru's struggle to break the curse for, if that was just inevitable? And I guess the message there is that sometimes struggle doesn't lead to fruitfulness, that sometimes it's just that's just life sometimes. It was like there was all this buildup about, okay, there's this curse, and we've got to find some way to break it. There's got to be some way to break it. Is there a way to break it? And then it's just, oh, it was going to break from the start.
Yeah.
It's almost like just taking it out of anyone's hands.
Yeah.
But in a way, I just had a thought that's kind of poetically fitting, because Akito talks about this bond as if it is, throughout the series, as if it is this inevitable thing. That is their fate. That is their role, to be the Zodiac members and to have this bond with each other eternally. Then at the end of the series, we find out that the fate of all of them is for this curse to break, that none of them can do anything about it, that's what's going to happen. I suppose it does sort of pan out in a way that works well poetically.
The way you talk about it, I just thought about it this right now. I'm reminded of this video from Religion for Breakfast. He has a whole video of this concept of Wu Wei, of Taoist philosophy, of the idea of going with the flow. And
Mhm.
I remembered of the parable of a river going around a rock. Water is pushing through it. The rock is still on it, so that the water bends and it flows through. The ever flowing water is not going to push away the ever still rock, but at the same time, the water still goes to where it needs to go, and the rocks, well, it still needs to be. But eventually, the rock is getting worn
Worn down.
down by the water. Your talk about the curse, what's the purpose of their efforts if it's already going to be broken down? And I'm like, that reminds me so much of that parable.
Hmm, I like that. Okay, so we're at the point where the curse has been broken. Akito has finally woken up
Mm-hmm,
to some extent,
mm-hmm,
and she starts making changes.
mm-hmm.
You know, she announces that Kyo will no longer be confined. That
She
and then
starts dressing up as a woman.
yes, the parting gift from Shigure. I remember seeing her step out dressed in that, traditional formal women's clothes and thinking not exactly I'm happy for her, but like this is good. This
Mm-hmm,
is a step in the right direction. This is a step towards healing and away from causing and receiving pain. And, she's in this position with the Zodiac members where she tells Shigure afterwards, I tried to apologize, but any apology we just wouldn't be enough. It would just sound hollow. And
I think that shows a little growth and maturity.
I think so too. I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that you should apologize even if it's not going to mean anything on its own. You should say it and then put actions behind it too. But I
Mm-hmm,
think that she recognized that words were just empty and that some people might never forgive her, that all she could do was move forward. That already shows growth.
mm-hmm.
I think that her relationship with Shigure has been toxic for a while, but I think that with the way things were going by the end of the series,
Mm-hmm.
they had a chance of turning it into something healthier.
It's requires some suspension of disbelief for me.
I know, I know, you're always the more pragmatic one on
Oh,
these things.
okay. I want to talk about the original promise. Toru narrates us the how the curse came to be, and
Right.
how, and that's kind of how we end the series. We learn that there's this man who we call the god, who is stuck high up in the mountain and just doesn't want to be rejected. And I am seeing a lot of John Paul Sartre's hell is other people throughout this story.
Huh.
And this is not the first time I see John Paul Sartre in the series.
Like because this god was afraid of being rejected by humans.
And so he surrounded himself with animals and held an everlasting banquet.
I mean, that ties back into the fear of rejection and the fear of loneliness. So the real beginning of the zodiac curse, it wasn't born out of this omnipotent god and a cat who was tricked into making a mistake.
Mm-hmm,
It was born out of a long-lived being called a god who was lonely
mm-hmm,
and who didn't know how to connect. And that there's that thing about how the cat is actually the first person to make a connection, but also the person who didn't want immortality.
despite
And,
having 9 lives.
that's why. Yeah, go figure. I guess maybe that's why. Maybe it was 9 lives was enough.
Okay. But yeah, I mentioned John Paul Sartre here, and
Mhm.
I also saw it with that episode with Ritsu on the when he was on the roof and mulling about what's his purpose in life it, and Tohru spouted basically the cornerstone idea of existentialism, that like, oh, maybe the purpose of life is to look for that purpose.
What? The purpose of life is to find your purpose, you mean?
Yeah.
To find someone or something to live for? Yeah, I mean, that's very much how I look at life myself, like, we don't come into this world with an inherent purpose, I believe. We go through life, I mean, my opinion is that we're alive to live, and,
Mhm.
for someone like Ritsu who needed a reason, finding someone else to live for was helpful. But that whole, I call it cheerful nihilism, where it's like, you know, there's really no point to life except the point that we make. That's all.
And to tie this back to the curse, it's just that for the longest while, the purpose of the zodiac members is to be at that banquets with God, but now they're free to do whatever.
Right. And even their freedom elicits mixed feelings from all of the zodiac members
Hmm.
because the bond was not a healthy thing, but it was there all their lives, and it was a part of their being, really.
Yeah, an example
It
of like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Right. The unknown is can be scary in a way that the expected horrors just stop being after a while.
Hmm. Okay. Final thoughts on this series.
This series was so much more than I expected from it in
Hmm.
terms of plot, character development, in terms of character growth. Like it just exceeded expectations in its content in so many wonderful ways. And I think that it actually teaches a lot of great life lessons, a
Hmm.
lot of more nuanced life lessons. Being said, if I had to pick between Yuki and Kyo as my guy, I'd still pick Yuki.
Same, girl. Same. Yuki is still going to be my guy because, yeah, I don't know. He's
Like, look,
just,
I love Kyo for Toru, but I'd pick Yuki.
I'd pick Yuki too. It's great. Kyo is great for Toru. Oh, one final thought for me. It's like, it was interesting that for the longest time, Kyoko, Toru's mom, has been her one true love and everything, that the one who is above everything else. And towards the end of it,
She has to learn to let go of that and move forward.
it was replaced by Kyo, a guy who has the same hair color, the same ish name.
Fitting,
Oh,
isn't it?
I know. Okay, that's it.
Thanks so much for having me, Barry. This was a
Uh,
fun discussion.
Thank you for talking with me about this wonderful story, Goldie. Love you.
Love you too, Bear.
Hi, this is Barry. I just want to thank Goldie for being so generous with her time, spending 4 hours with me just to talk about Fruits Basket. I just want to also point out that she has her own Etsy shop where she sells handmade beaded jewelry. I also want to thank all the people who helped me with creating this video. Their links are going to be in the description box along with the link for Goldie's Etsy shop. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.